Tēnā koutou. Something special is happening here today. We've got whānau from across the motu coming in to share their stories and to look at their futures to decide, what life has in store for them. We believe Māori should have a greater say in their future, and it all begins here. So why don't you come in and have a listen? Haere mai.
Commission, I would like to welcome you all here to what we're calling He Ara Whakama, building pathways together to the future. This is a really, really good day for the Families Commission. The most productive thing we can do is turn the lens around and actually enable the people we're doing the research with to tell us how they define themselves, to tell us how they see the pathways to the future.
I have great pleasure in launching this fabulous report.
It is absolutely appropriate that we remind ourselves of what is important in our lives, what matters most, and inevitably we find that answer in our whānau.
We've seen for years and years, with all the best intentions in the world, organisations grow out of the misery of our families, and yet they have not changed the situation for our families, because that's what they've tried to do. It's not about money, it is about a mind shift of self-belief. We can do this.
What I do love about today is that examples of people who have been successful, what can we learn from that? We've had a table full of community people, not just academics. Diverse range of opinions, but all focused on sharing. And again, I think that's another strength of today. I think we need to do more of this. I think, too often we're trying to find the silver bullet, the pathway versus the pathways, and I think these types of wānanga encourage us to be more reflective.
To do that, doesn't it? Having the choice to go to, I like that paper in the wānanga, Awanuirangi offers this, Victoria University offers this, and they make up and design their own degree.
The glories of the hunt were always told by the hunters, until the lions get their own historians.
At the moment, I've got 3 of my mokopuna living in my house giving me grief. And the 10-year-old, he's come to me to remind me, Mama, you may have lost your sense of humour along the way, and Mama, you may have lost your sense of compassion along the way, and so he grounds me. If I had my wish, I would gather all my mokopuna to me, and I would daily teach them the reo. I was told by a principal when I was in the 3rd form, what languages would you like to consider? I said, well, reo Māori. But there is no reo Māori. Would you be interested in French? Why the hell would I want to learn French? Well, how about Latin? Well, where's Latin? He looked back at me and he said, you will never get anywhere in this world, girl, I'm telling you now. If you think that you're going to rely on your language and your Maori culture, you'll get nowhere in this world. So I was expelled from 1 school and suspended from 2 as a result of standing up for myself. So when my mokopuna do things, they are not naughty, they're standing up for themselves. The first step to the future starts from within. It certainly wouldn't happen from without. It must begin from within. If you haven't got the strength from within to address the issues without, It's a long journey. It's a long journey.
Our future is behind us. We can only know a pathway forward if we know from whence we've come. Sadly, there's a lot of our children have lost their whakapapa. That's a real danger, and we're moving away from that deficit to thinking, well, now how do we regain that identity to be positive and uplifted and proud to be Māori? Personally, a man who never knew his father, never met him, and only just finding out at Koroju's tangi, nephew, you never met your father, he said. 2 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail. Oh, nephew, ring this Auntie B, your father's still alive in Sydney. Too scared to do anything about it just yet. I'm 54 years old, still never met my father. We all have our own journeys. Some of us, and a lot of our people I know, and maybe you do too, don't have those connections, but sooner or later those connections will find you, or you can do something about it. Because maybe your mokopuna might do it for you. Ka pai.
I'm facilitating a hui at Wākura Marae, and I do this exercise called whānau hapu and iwi. This Pākehā woman came up to me afterwards and she said to me, your workshop today is just brought up all this stuff for me. And I go, what's that? And she goes, well, I don't know who the father of my daughter is because I got wasted at a party and, She goes, what do I tell you? I said, truth. I was telling her the truth. The best way you know how. The pathway forward for me, for our whānau, is number one, start with yourself. Keep yourself well, understand your role and responsibilities, get on with it, work with your own first. Be of service to the rest of your community with anything you've got left over. But for me, if you don't take care of the pito, you actually become part of the problem. You become perpetuating, the problem of pakaru whānau. For me, it's quite easy, it's quite simple, it's quite straight up. Not always easy to do, but that's the whittle.
I think it's important to hear your voice first, and then if you believe, then you can be heard. My mum's voice is heard differently at different ages. Then there's the daddy voice, that's different again. Then there's grandparent voice, auntie voice, koro voice, there's lots of voices. That's the whānau voice, I guess, altogether, yeah.
Have Māori got a voice? Are we asking that question? Or are Pākehā asking that of us? I very much remember the fight we had at the Kohanga Reo National Trust level. It was the best thing since sliced bread for this government. It could go overseas and talk about what it had done for the Indigenous people. Done for the Indigenous people? We did it for ourselves. We have been making big strides in terms of keeping our own voice, keeping pace with our own tikanga, and saying every now and then to the government, catch up if you can.
26 years ago, my first child, a daughter, Henurewa Poutu, was born. Henurewa started at Kohanga on the day of her first birthday. Within Manawatu, we could see 5 kohanga would not be enough to feed the kura, so we established a new one. 5 years later, there were 10 kohanga. Our first kura had rapidly filled and a second kura was warranted. We opened our Warikura secondary department 3 years later. All children graduate with the minimum qualification of UE, and they are awarded a gift from the wānau, a symbol of Mātauranga Māori carved limestone rock, and a symbol of modern technology, a laptop. building pathways for the future through te reo, the only way to go.
I absolutely believe that the solutions for whānau sit within whānau. No matter how deprived or disadvantaged a whānau might seem to be, there are positive aspects in there. So those services that actually work with whānau need to be looking from that strengths-based, find those positive aspects, build on them, and then but empower the whānau to actually do that for themselves.
Often we are still told, in fact, that, we have the highest proportion of Māori in prison. Yes, we do, but that amounts to what? About 4,500, Kim? And that is a sad indictment. But that means about 796,000 of us are not in jail, okay? So we have to build these educated people, these stories in here of these magnificent, marvellous people who in their time are carving out their pathway. We need to tell those stories and those narratives to ourselves over and over and over again, because we are fabulous.
We want those stories of success to be told. He Ara Whakama was at Massey University, age 16, doing her first degree, and why at age 22, this wonderful young woman on the cover submitted her master's thesis in Te Reo Rangatira, quite possibly the youngest woman in New Zealand ever to have done so. Case studies of 4 businesses using brand Māori to get a global advantage, and they are Kia Kaha, Kaitaia Fire, Boy, the film, before it won all of its awards.
The 4th one was the Ruakuri Caves.
The Winitana whānau, who through the Ahorangi Genesis play, for example, tour New Zealand, taking traditional knowledge and culture about our people and turning it into a stunning play and roadshow. The late Dame Katarina Mataida, Dame Iritana Te Whiwhirangi, Dr. Kyla Russell, Paparangi Reid, Moi Milne, Ngaropi Cameron, Ari Te Kopu, Barbara Greer, Miriana Pittman, Dr. Rose Pere.
Joy, joy, joy.
Aiu ki te aorangi, aroha ki te aorangi, koa ki te aorangi, pono ki te aorangi. Kia tau ko te kahukura, te wairua korehere. He maumahara ki te whae a Papa Tuanoko. Some of you might have, hopefully all of you have read Te Whiki, and some of you will know that that is the mihi with which Rangi Māori Pere Rose starts it. For me it's particularly important, not just because it talks about the peace and the love and the joy to the universe and how that relates hopefully to what literacy brings to us as humans, but also because it talks about the concept of the violet flame of social justice never dying and always prevailing. But I do know that once I go from here, I'll go back to doing my bit, to making it possible. Actually, everyone understands that it's not about educating the individual, it's about educating everyone in the whānau.
So every time you think of the pathway forward, it's only you that can make a difference. It's only you and us together that can either ignore policy and develop our own people the way that they should be developed. And if we don't do that development, knowing full well the opportunities are in our hands to do it, then you do not have the courage to change those things that you can change. Nor will you have the wisdom to know the difference. Kia ora tātou.
If we're waiting for others to create that pathway, then, it's just not going to happen. So we're in control of that destiny, and I think that, we just need to assert ourselves and be able to take that up, because I think that we can. I don't think that that belongs to others to decide.
Today's been a reflective day, and it's been a sharing day, and I think, we've got to slow down. We've got smell the coffee, we've got to reflect, we've got to talk, we've got to share, and I think that's been really powerful today.
The stories today have been really inspiring and positive. A relief to hear so many fine words from our whānau. Will you join with us to build a pathway to the future? We need your voices to be heard as well. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā koutou katoa.